I am Dion from Eflowtion. Welcome to yet another intuitive EFT tap and chat. This one on cultivating your inner garden. I hope if you've joined that you're here for EFT tapping and not for gardening tips. But with EFT tapping, with all the intuitive EFT tap and chats, we tap along on the side of the hand there, and there is a meridian point on both hands, so you can feel free to change. And we tend to, in all these intuitive EFT tap and chats, to tap along because definitely anything that I say that may be triggering, this actually helps to release any discomfort stored in the body or any emotion stored in the body. It tends to get stuck sometimes. So, cultivating your inner garden. Now, this one's going to be very metaphor driven in the sense of I kind of wanted it to, I guess it's one of those things where if I talk about it probably directly, it may be confronting. So sometimes a good metaphor is a way to, I guess, soften the blow, I guess, in a way. I kind of set that up as if like I'm about to drop some news. It's just a way of reframing, a way of approaching a difficult topic. Now, cultivating your inner garden. If we look at a garden in a metaphorical sense, we all have a garden within us, if we look at it metaphorically. And sometimes these gardens within ourselves are flourishing, they do well, they're full of life, and they others appreciate that. This garden from within, and other times we might struggle with, I guess, inner garden maintenance. It's where we might get overrun with weeds. We might things might not grow as well within ourselves, and we can't seem to cultivate any sense of goodness within ourselves, or let's at least a perception, and we can't seem to grow abundance within ourselves, and that can be quite frustrating. And it's almost as if like, well, if I knew this course in cultivating my inner garden sort of thing, that might be the answer to it. And it might be the thing that leads you to tend to your inner garden, or even nurture it in a better way. Or it could be somewhat a course that might be misleading to you. I'm not setting this up as if I'm going to sell you a course. It's just a framework. But when we look at our inner garden, sometimes our inner garden just doesn't get any nurturing at all, just doesn't get any attendance to its growing of life within ourselves. And I don't mean this in a literal growing of life if you're pregnant sort of thing. I mean this in you can take it in that form, but a growing of life where the weeds are sort of taking a bit more precedence within our body, and that we're getting overrun by things that are choking us, things that are holding us back. We know that the ground is very fertile and we can grow good stuff within ourselves, but for some reason these weeds keep growing. And I think in a way, if we explore that a little bit more, it may start to even make a bit more sense, even if you've already got the gist of it already. Now, when we look at cultivating our inner garden, giving our inner garden some maintenance, we might do it in many different ways. And we tend to, it's like with gardening, like I'm not a great gardener sort of thing, but I go with what I know or just makes sense or what I've just learnt along the way. And with some of these things that we've learnt along the way, um, it could be from people that didn't quite know how to look after their own inner garden, don't know how to maintain it quite well. And that's not a blame thing. It's just they probably learned from someone else that didn't quite know how to maintain their inner garden, how to grow that life within themselves to flourish. And sometimes information given, any sort of like learnt ways of doing things might not be the best things that actually nurture this inner garden within ourselves. And we find that, you know, it's like going up to like a, I don't know, a flower bush. That's my gardening terms, a flower bush. And like, rather than like just trimming away at dead leaves, we might just want to take out the whole bush, because it's like for some reason that bush within ourselves, this flower bush that was just doing its own thing, is the actual thing that we want to destroy. Because if we can't just trim away at it, we just want to remove the whole thing. And sometimes with emotions, because this is, I don't know, a metaphor for emotions, sometimes if we can't actually or can't even look at some of these emotions within ourselves, it's almost as if we try to ignore or remove these emotions within ourselves, or even plainly flat out deny their existence. But unfortunately, denying something that, like in a garden, that tends to grow no matter how much you ignore it. Think about, like, I know if I ignore my lawn for long, it gets a lot of weeds, it grows. No, I can deny its existence as much as I want, but it's going to keep on growing those weeds, no matter whether I like it or not. And when we look at emotions like anger or shame or guilt or uh, a myriad of different emotions, like if we deny sometimes these emotions, we're almost denying the existence of our own inner garden. But once again, if we deny the existence of it, it tends to grow within ourselves. Now, sometimes when we want to actually maintain our inner garden, and doing it with sort of just the knowledge that we've acquired along the way, we might think, oh, okay, well, I do realize there's some issues that I need to deal with. So therefore, I'll start pulling away at these weeds. I'll start dealing with these things. But sometimes without knowledge of what is, I mean, it's hard to define really at the end of the day, what is a weed and what is a normal flower. I guess it's, you tend to pull away at maybe the good stuff that you need. And what I mean by that is, like, sometimes when we go about trying to help ourselves, we might do so in a way that is actually inflicting more damage to ourselves. We might be trying to, in a way, yeah, like in a way, like where it's like, an easy way to me to explain this is like in a medication sense sort of thing. It's like, well, this medication doesn't work for me, so therefore I might try this completely other way, or even this alternative way with all this different benefits and all that, but it might be just the same drug. Like, take for example, like you might be thinking, well, I'm seeing like marijuana is dealing with all these magical issues. And in many ways, it's a lot better drug than some of the pharmaceuticals out there with the side effects and that. But sometimes in going from one drug to another, it's almost as if, like, once again, you're ripping out the weeds. And but like with weeds, like, you've sort of got to get to the root of the problem, sort of thing. And they constantly keep arising, sort of thing. So it's almost like you're supplementing one drug for another drug, and the root cause of the issue just keeps arising, keeps manifesting. And by, I guess, any sort of good inner or any good outer gardener, an actual real world gardener would probably treat the root cause of a weed so it doesn't tend to come back, sort of thing. They don't want to have to be constantly maintaining an arising issue, sort of thing, or you don't want to be constantly maintaining an issue that's within yourself. Even though it might be a better form of drug, it just seems to keep arising, and it keeps breaking through the surface. So sometimes in helping ourselves with what we know or what we've acquired along the way, even though we're attempting to, the methods maybe just sort of like almost like a topical cream. They're only treating the surface, sort of thing, whereas like it's coming from within the inner garden. Sometimes to actually treat something, we actually want to just remove everything altogether, like what I was saying before, is with a like a tree. We may have an issue with a tree, and rather than sort of maintaining the tree, we want to chop the whole damn tree down, sort of thing. But when you look at a tree has strong roots, it has strong foundations, and that. And in doing so, you like, if you don't really, like we just did it recently, grind away at the stump, sort of thing, it'll grow back, sort of thing. So even something as mighty as a tree, or something as mighty as like some sort of autoimmune disorder, sort of thing, without treating the root cause, it'll start to manifest back, sort of thing. Or if you're, once again, just topically, like topically putting like a Band-Aid solution onto something that is still quite strong in its growth, then it may come back, or it may not. Nothing's a certainty. And when we look at the word cultivating, like, it's one of those things that, well, actually, before I get that, I'll get to another point. So similar to the tree, is sometimes people, like going to a garden show, for example, or like seeing like a fabulous inner garden of someone else. Sometimes people want to pull at the flowers and the beauty of the inner garden. So it may resemble some of their own garden that might be not well maintained, sort of thing. So therefore, it's almost like they want to chop your tree down, or rip up your beautiful flowers from within, so that you can have the same resemblance of garden that they have. They want you to be, in a sense, no better than their garden. It's like a share alike garden, except when you do, if you've got a beautiful garden within that you've cultivated so well, and someone wants to tear that basically down or apart, uproot it in a sense, it might be a signal that this person may have not learnt the best inner garden methods, and therefore maybe without them actually cultivating their own inner garden, maybe something to not take advice from or avoid. Think of it this way: you don't want to take driving lessons from someone that doesn't know how to drive, sort of thing. It's like, what does this button do? I don't know. Let's find out as we drive down the highway. So with the inner garden, sometimes there's people that want to have the garden their way or tell you how to plant your gardens or whatever it is. I've been focusing on flowers. Let's go fruit. If it's a fruit garden, they might want to tell you exactly how to grow your fruit tree. They want you to be able to tell you exactly how to grow your strawberry plants. Very neat, very ordered, very controlled almost. And one thing with a garden or any sort of emotion, the more you try to control an emotion, the more or control in ignoring, the more it'll flourish. And definitely, like, you can trim a tree as much as you want. You can like pull up weeds as much as you want. But recently just watched Jurassic Park, and as Jeff Goldblum's character says, nature finds a way, sort of thing. So in a sense, if you're trying to control nature, if you're trying to control both your own emotions, or if someone's trying to control your emotions or structure your emotions in a almost formulaic way, nature will find a way. And it's as soon as you stop manicuring that tree, basically, as soon as you put down the garden shears, it'll just go back to how it was before. It'll find its natural form. So no matter how much you try to control something, sometimes you've just got to let it flourish. In the sense of anger, sort of thing, it's almost as if like, well, anger, I don't want to view anger because anger gets a bad rap. and what I mean by that is sometimes anger is a good motivator. It's a good way of noticing that there's an indifference in your life, so it can actually be a motivator for change. But I guess also anger can be like left unchecked, be quite constricting to your garden, and that's all you'll see. Anger can also be seen in the sense of how to manicure your garden. If you've got a lot of weeds growing up out of your garden, your inner garden, you could try to control your weeds with a flamethrower. You could do a bit of manicuring of the backyard with a flamethrower being anger. But at the end, your inner garden just ends up burnt, and it ends up never. And there's probably always a sense of like, well, I probably shouldn't have flamethrowered my garden. Probably wasn't the best way of dealing with something. So sometimes if you want to view anger in a garden sense, it's almost as if like it's the thorns that are on the roses, sort of thing. It's kind of like you kind of, in a way, want to be aware of. You can trim off the thorns, I guess, of it, sort of thing. But I guess having an awareness of it, in the sense of, like, you don't go up to a rose bush and go, oh, hi, the rose bush, and cuddle it, sort of thing. It's having an awareness of like that it has some thorns, and even though a rose bush has its thorns, it also has its beauty, sort of thing. It also has the flower in it. So it also, you want to, what I'm trying to say is, you want to be aware of the anger, but it's also like, you don't want to embrace the anger in the sense of that's your mode of dealing with things in life. And I guess the flourishing flower can be the motivator of change. That's the thing that could get you out of a situation that has been probably oppressing or depressing you for so long. With cultivating your inner garden, what I said before of like, sometimes we don't, like, we're just going on what the knowledge we have to basically be a gardener that you might watch on TV, sort of thing. It's like you might watch a few gardening shows and go, well, that's me. And I guess like the knowledge that we've acquired along the way, with all knowledge, I guess if it doesn't actually serve you, I guess it's also why hold on to something that doesn't serve you. Why hold on to knowledge that is actually impeding the growth of your inner garden. If someone said to you that the best way to grow your garden is to flame grow it, sort of thing, and you're thinking, well, I don't think that will actually grow any goodness from within myself, then it might be advised not to be listened to. Or you might seek an alternative opinion or many alternative opinions to get a consensus. And sometimes with I guess with the other sense of like with cultivating in a garden is like it's good honest work when you do it, sort of thing. It's that hands in the soil, that dealing with the problems of everything that arises within your inner garden, to actually grow a good healthy garden that people might appreciate. And what I mean by appreciate is they might want to stop and smell the roses with you. They might actually fall in love with the scent of your inner garden because you're emitting good vibes, a good frequency. But sometimes when we set about doing this good, honest work within ourselves, we don't want to look at the honesty of it, sort of thing, because when we look at some of these weeds within ourselves, these things that are holding us back, that might be choking us, that might be even constricting us in a physical sense and an emotional sense. It's like these roots are just deeply in there, sort of thing, or at least it feels that way. It could be where we start to get into a frame of mind where, because we perceive it as so hard to actually deal with, this inner garden is just so choked up, it doesn't know actually what to do first, or even when, like, it's almost as if it's a garden of just physical pain or of just emotional pain. It's like everything is made of glass within ourselves, and that can be actually quite hard to deal with. And it's something that would never be solved within like maybe one EFT session. I mean, miracles can happen, but let's be honest. It could be something where if we don't want to look even within our inner garden, but we somehow have to still function with other people's inner gardens, and some people's inner gardens might be better than others, sort of thing, and that might make our own inner garden feel worse because it just doesn't flourish the way. Sometimes we might start planting a few fake plastic plants within ourselves. We might start a few fake flowers here and there, sort of thing, a few fake trees, a bit of astroturf on the lawn, sort of thing, to give that perception of something that is not actually had any real tending to. It's almost like it's getting covered up over by a layer of inauthenticity. And it's where, as much as, but with this sort of metaphorical fake plastic garden sort of thing, to actually go about with this inner garden within ourselves. We've got this fakeness within ourselves that we've actually developed as a response to probably a lot of hurt that's happened. There's actually a lot of maintaining that also still, you've still got to spray perfume onto a flower to actually make it seem as if it's a flower, sort of thing. Now, unfortunately, there might be people that come along and go, oh, I actually don't see this as a fake plastic flower. I actually get caught up in the illusion of this being a beautiful inner garden. And they might come along and stop to smell the roses. And unfortunately, when they stop to smell the roses, a Venus flytrap might come out and snare them. So I guess in the case of where you might be developing an inner garden that has, and once again, this is not a blaming or a shaming thing. It's just an understanding thing, an awareness thing that in not being truly sort of honest. And what I mean by honest is not like I must be honest, I must not tell lies sort of thing. I mean, it's like if you're like, say, experiencing it, it would be like if you were crying and I said, it appears you're crying. You said, no, I'm actually like, I don't know. I mean, sometimes you can laugh with tears of laughter, but like if you're absolutely deep in grief of like crying, so sobbing your heart out, and you're saying, no, I'm actually laughing sort of thing. It's like a lot of it seems to be tears, or the other way is like if you're screaming in rage and you're like saying, no, I'm not actually angry sort of thing. That's where what I mean by we might be not honest with actually how we're truly feeling. And sometimes we get these ways because if we are around people that have cultivated that sense of like where you're professing that you're not angry, or you're crying but you're professing that you're happy, sometimes that's a response, because if you're angry, for example, around someone that doesn't like that sort of thing, then it's best to find an alternative emotion. Otherwise, there might be more pain that comes your way, sort of thing. So sometimes these ways that we develop, even though it may be a fakeness within ourselves, it's like a coping mechanism for something that has actually been emotionally or physically I guess a lot of harm being done, I guess. But at the same time, when we go to actually honestly cultivate within, sometimes it's hard as it seems, and sometimes it's a pure perception of how hard it is to actually go in, or we're fearful of what might come out. But I guess the alternative is to keep cultivating things that hold us back or choke us up or make us feel constricted. And why I say constricted is sometimes, like with any sort of emotional or traumas or anything like that, we can feel actually quite tense within ourselves. It's almost like we're getting wrapped in vines or roots, or like tenseness in the shoulders, stomach, and all that. It feels like we're just getting ensnared by these this vine system, this root system that is like deep within, that we can't actually free ourselves from. And when we do free ourselves from it, if we do all that sort of like hard inner gardening work, or easy inner gardening work, depending on the person and situation, it can be freeing. It can be like where you see a garden that's overchoked with weeds, you do all the hard work on it, and then you've got this nice garden that you can actually enjoy. You can spend time in, you can feel connected to your own inner nature. So therefore, sometimes, as hard as it seems, probably, once again, it's like if you were to beat your head against the wall as your as your like solution to something, and all you end up with is a headache, and someone said maybe try a different way, but it's like, well, banging my head against the wall is the most appropriate way, and that's how I've been told. I mean, you can sort of see that that's probably not the best way to do something. That's not the best way to get a solution or to live a life in pain. So therefore, I think cultivating that inner garden gives you that freedom in life. And it also gives you, I guess, if you're creating a space within yourself, you're actually got room for new emotions to take its place. All these constricting emotions start to go away or reduce. And you've got now room, garden plots in your inner garden for new things to grow, new experiences to grow, new experiences of even emotions that you've had before, happiness, joy, sharing connection with others, feeling safe in your own inner garden, not being scared to go within your own inner garden. and feeling confident and proud of your own inner garden. And even if someone tries to tear your own inner garden down, it's just knowing that, you know, each to their own, and each will find their own inner garden as long as they look within to cultivate it. Because I could start planting things within your own inner garden, but once again, it's not my place to. And what I perceive as good for you might not be good for your own inner garden. I might go, well, that tree goes well there, sort of thing. It's like, well, I don't want a tree. I want I want an apple. I don't know, kiwi fruit vine. There we go. I said it. Or something else. Whatever is good for you. Because sometimes allowing that space for your own inner garden to grow is for everything, once again, to take its natural form, to grow in its own natural way. And I guess with self-care, in a garden, is sometimes like how I was saying with pruning a bush, like it'll just find its natural form. Sometimes that self-care is that self-care routines within ourselves, or just self-awareness that, hey, I can notice that one emotion, and it can even be a good emotion, is getting a bit out of control, or that inner those negative emotions seem to be getting a bit out of control. I might tend to my inner garden and give myself some self-care. EFT tapping is one of these methods to actually reduce. It reduces the cortisol. Cortisol is an inflamer, it inflames. So too much cortisol in the body will actually inflame your body, and you don't want to be treating your inner garden with high levels of toxicity of stress, and that we want to reduce like too much. It's like, and once again, cortisol can be a good thing. It's what signals the body to heal. But overproduction of toxicity, it's almost like with fertilizer. You want to fertilize your garden, but you don't want to over fertilize your garden. Otherwise, it'll actually burn in some cases, and actually cause a lot of health issues to your inner garden. And it can also constrict as well. So therefore, it's like you want to be able to tend to your own inner garden to give yourself that freedom. Because definitely no one likes a toxic spill within an inner garden. And I guess, let's see where else intuition takes me. I feel like I may have actually covered the topics that I was rattling around somewhere. I feel like there's another point, but maybe in the EFT tapping round will come up. So let's have a quick drink. Okay. So we'll do an EFT tapping on tending to your own inner garden and giving yourself the freedom to grow within yourself. So seeing where you are on a subscale, so a subjective unit of distress scale, 10 being your garden is completely out of control and needs a bit of maintenance, 0 being your garden is pretty smick, pretty good. Rating it on a scale of 10 to 0, and remember this is a subjective scale, so it doesn't have to be accurate. And we'll do a setup statement 3 times on either side of the hand, and then move into the point. So whenever I say something, you can either verbally say it or just say it in your mind. So even though I have this inner garden that might have got out of control, it might be constricted by a few weeds, I deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself. Even though I have this inner garden within myself, and I really want it to flourish and do well in life, I deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself. Even though I may have learned some bad gardening techniques along the way that have not helped the growth of my inner garden. I deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself. My inner garden, this inner garden within me, all this inner garden may have been constricted by some emotional weeds that have been rooted deep inside of me. And been constricting my system. All this inner garden. All this lack of growth. As much as I try to grow my inner garden, with the knowledge I've picked up along the way, I seem to be doing more harm than good. I seem to be causing myself more harm than good. I really don't intend to. I'm trying to do the best that I can with the knowledge that I've acquired along the way of how to tend to my inner garden. And maybe these gardening experts that I've acquired this knowledge from just sort of picked it up along the way as well. And they might be teaching me gardening techniques that are causing more harm than good. Harm to my inner garden. So I'm going to pay attention to that. Because if I've got a rose bush, they say the best way to grow a rose is to put a flamethrower to it, project all this anger towards it. It might completely burn that rose bush, or it may even stunt its growth. And I don't want that for my inner garden. I want it to flourish. And there might be some people that have said to me, the best way for life to flourish in its most natural way is to put as much restrictions around it as possible. To put as much constrictions around it as possible. Because that's the only way this inner garden will learn on how to do what it does naturally. So I might free myself from some of these constrictions. I might free myself from some of these restrictions I put upon myself so that my inner garden can grow more naturally. So that my emotions can grow more naturally. If some of these emotions get out of control, I'll tend to them with some self-care and some self-love. And who knows, if I really honestly do my gardening work, if I look deep within myself, into my inner garden, and tend to my needs, and tend to my emotions, I might even flourish. And people might even enjoy my inner garden and spend some time with my inner garden and enjoy the smell of the roses. And if I don't tend to my inner garden, if I let it go out of control, then there might be things in this garden that might hurt myself or might hurt others. So I might look within myself, clear out the thorns, clear out any debris, so that it's safe for me to be in my inner garden. And it's safe for others to experience my inner garden. Because wouldn't that be great? Instead of fearing my inner garden, I completely loved my inner garden. And I might want to love my inner garden a bit more. Because if I ignore my inner garden, it tends to go out of control. I'm tending to my inner garden. I'm nurturing my inner garden. I'm giving myself nurturing. I'm giving myself the self-love that I deserve. I'm giving myself the self-care that I deserve, so that my inner garden can flourish and I can experience some freedom in this inner garden and not feel so constricted in body, mind, and soul. Taking a deep breath in. Seeing where you sit on that sud scale, is that 0 to 10? It may have gone up, it may have gone down. If it's gone up, maybe repeat the video or other videos that are on our YouTube channel, the Eflowtion channel. Or alternatively, as the YouTube channels are very global and you want to deal with your specific issues, definitely book in with either myself or my wife, Rebecca, another EFT practitioner. And even Soma Breath can help you free yourself and give you the nurturing, the energy to actually empower your inner garden. And I think it's quite a respectful thing to do to yourself. And if we respect ourselves and respecting how our own inner garden flourishes, then that flows onto others as well. And definitely spending time in your own inner garden. There's probably some parts in that inner garden that we are a bit shadowy and we don't want to go into. But sometimes when we do go into it, we find that, that might have been actually where all the goodness lied. It was just scary to actually go into. But as EFT and Soma Breath are a great way to go into that without having to relive, rather than we don't we tend not to relive, we reduce experiences. So EFT can be a great way to reduce some of these fears that we have within our own inner garden. So once again, I'm Dion from Eflowtion, and I look forward to maybe having a one-on-one with someone that wants to tend to their own inner garden. So until next time, have an awesome and lovely day. Bye.